Warriors NRL Fanatics here, back today with a video, and guess what? The footy is finally here. How good, how good. I'm looking forward to it. Round one, it all begins tomorrow night with the Storm and the Rabbitohs, and it ends with the Dragons and the Sharks on Sunday night. So, footy, how good is it to have it back on the TV, and I'm just looking forward to it. I am definitely looking forward to the Warriors versus the Titans, of course, because it is my team, and I cannot wait for that game on Saturday afternoon, which I will be doing a live reaction on YouTube, so make sure you tune in for that. So now to get into my round one tips, and the first game kicks off on Thursday the 11th of March, the Storm versus the Rabbitohs at AAMI Park in Melbourne. Now the Melbourne Storm, they're coming into this season as the defending premiers after beating Penrith in the grand final last year. The Rabbitohs, they come into this season with a lot of expectations, a lot of hype, and you know they fully deserve the hype going into the off season because they have one of the strongest teams on paper, in my opinion. They just have a great squad, and you know this is Wayne Bennett's last year coaching at the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And, you know, they will definitely want to do much better than bombing out of the finals in 3 years in a row. So, you know, Melbourne come into this season without the likes of Cameron Smith for the first time. He's retired. Well, by the sounds of it, he is retired. So, you know, it is a big blow. Cameron Smith's one of Melbourne's biggest players, one of their key players. And, you know, it's going to be a bit interesting to see how Melbourne go without Cameron Smith for the first time. And they're still not going to be down the bottom, though. But Melbourne's still not going to be down the bottom. They're still going to be up the top contending for the premiership this year, in my opinion. They're still going to be up there. You know, they've still got Pappenhausen. They've still got Brandon Smith. They've still got Harry Grant. They've still got Cameron Munster. They've still got a very good squad, Melbourne, regardless of those players that like Cameron Smith, who's retired. They've still got a very good side, and I'm still not writing them off to contest for the minor premiership. I know some people are saying that they'll probably finish a bit lower this year, which I totally understand because of Cameron Smith not being there, because he's one of their pivotal players, but I still see Melbourne being up there near the top at the end of the year. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting season for Melbourne, and it's going to be interesting to see how they go without Cameron Smith for the first time. So, as for the Rabbitohs, you know, they've got some very good players in there as well. They've got Cameron Murray. They've got Adam Reynolds. They've got Cody Walker. They've got Latrell Mitchell who's back at fullback. They've got Jai Arrow as well from the Gold Coast Titans. And they've got Benji Marshall as well for a bit of depth. So, South Sydney, they're in for a big season. They're going to have a strong season, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they go as well. So, you know, in this game, it's going to be, this one's actually a very tough game to call, actually. This is one of the toughest games to call as well. And, you know, I was close to thinking of picking the Rabbitohs for an upset here, but, you know, look at Melbourne's record under Craig Bellamy in round one games. And it's an outstanding record, and they're hard to beat in Melbourne. And South Sydney, they've got a bit of a hoodoo to overcome as well. They haven't beaten Melbourne in Melbourne for a long time. So, you know, the Rabbitohs are in for a good chance here. I'm not writing them off. I reckon they'll definitely make it a good contest and a good close game. But in Melbourne, I'm going to have to tip the Melbourne Storm by 8. And my first try scorer, I'm going to go with the new signing, Remus Smith. Now, on Friday the 12th of March sees the Knights versus the Bulldogs at McDonald Jones Stadium in Newcastle. Now, Newcastle last year, they had a pretty decent season. I think they're a little bit inconsistent for my liking. I think they're a little bit up and down. Now, I think the start of the season, they did quite well. And then the back end of the season, I think they, you know, lost a bit of consistency, and they bombed out of the finals, Newcastle. So, you know, this year, they'll be expected to be probably around that 8th or 9th position. For me, I have them missing out on the top 8 this year, but for I think a lot of people, they're going to be inside that top 8. So, This game's going to be interesting. They're going to be without Kalen Ponga in this game due to an injury. They've got Tex Hoy at fullback. Now, for the Bulldogs, this is a very interesting year for them. They've recruited quite well, the Bulldogs, for this year and for the next coming years. Now, they've got some exciting players in there. They've got Nick Kotrick coming in from the Canberra Raiders. They've got Addo Carr signing in the 2022 season. Their halves combination is quite interesting. And I think they will definitely take some time to get gelling, and I think they'll take some time gelling. They won't be in the bottom half of the ladder this year. I'm picking them to be mid-table. So, yeah, I reckon the Bulldogs will be one of the massive improvers this year. In this game, I give them a massive chance here. I think they can get up. I'm actually going to pick an upset, and this might surprise a few people, but I reckon the Bulldogs can win this. I'm going to go the Bulldogs by 4. And I reckon the first try scorer. Now, I love to pick wingers as first try scorers, and I like picking this guy for first try scorers picks. And I'm going to go with Nick Kotrick from the Raiders, the new signing. I reckon he'll dot down in his first game for the Bulldogs. Now, the second game on Friday night sees the Broncos versus the Eels at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. Now, the Brisbane Broncos had a very tough year last year. A very, very tough year. Actually, if you don't remember, they did start the year quite well. They were 2-0 at the first 2 games, and then lockdown hit. So from there on, they had a tough year, and they won the wooden spoon. They conceded a lot of points. Their discipline wasn't great. They weren't turning up for each other, Brisbane. But this is a new season. There's Kevy Walters at the helm for the first time. Kevy Walters is one of the most experienced guys out there. He's a Brisbane man through and through. I know he hasn't coached in the NRL yet. This is his first gig in the NRL, but Kevy Walters is still pretty experienced, and he's a Brisbane man, and he'll want to change that team around and turn them into contenders again. So it's going to be an interesting season for Brisbane. I know there's a lot of people still picking them to be bottom half of the ladder. I don't think they'll be bottom half of the ladder. I think they'll improve massively this year. I've got them around 9th position this year. And for this game, it's quite a big game for Brisbane. And they'll want to start off well. They really would want to start off well. They're at Suncorp Stadium, Brisbane. They'll have the fans in front of them, the support of their home supporters. And, I'm not writing them off in this game. I know people might say you're crazy and all that, but I'm not writing them off in this game, I think they could potentially pick up an upset here. And as for the Parramatta Eels, last year they bombed out of the finals yet again. Now, I think they made the top 4 last year, and it was an interesting season for Parramatta. I think they started quite well, and then, they had a few inconsistent results. So I know it shows that they made the top 4, but still a little bit inconsistent, Parramatta. And I think in the big games they really struggled in the big games. So in this game, everyone's tipping Parramatta to flog them and all that, but I don't think it'll be a flogging. I don't think Parramatta will flog them. I'm going to back Brisbane here, actually. I'm going to back them. Huge surprise here. I know it's a huge surprise. I'm picking another upset. I'm going to pick Brisbane by 6. And my first try scorer, I've gone with Herbie Farnworth. Now, on Saturday, the 30th of March, sees the Roosters versus the Manly Seagulls. And this is at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Now, the Sydney Roosters last year, they were back-to-back premiers. They came into that year last year as the back-to-back premiers. And I think the Roosters last year, they had a lot of injury issues. I know a lot of teams had a lot of injury issues, but, I think the Roosters, they weren't at their best last year. And, in the finals, I think they were very close to being Penrith from week 1. So, last year was quite a interesting season for the Roosters. I just thought they weren't at their best. And, this year, you can't expect the Roosters to not be back at their best this year. They'll be up there. They'll be challenging for that premiership. And in this game, they've got a very strong lineup leading into this game. They've named a very strong team. as for the Manly Seagulls, you know, they have signed the likes of Foreign, you know, Foreign and Cherry Evans in the halves the first time in a long time. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And they will be without Tommy Turbo yet again due to an injury. Now, Tommy Turbo, what can you say about him? He can't stay in the field. It's very unfortunate and it's very sad to see. You know, I like Tommy Turbo. He's a great player. And, you know, when he's on the field, you know, he can be one of those Dally M contenders. So, you know, in this game, you know, I want to see the Manly Seagulls get up, but unfortunately, sorry to Paddy G and NRL 090, I'm going to have to tip the Sydney Roosters here. You know, I think the Roosters will win around about by 12 points. And, you know, I like to see Manly get up, but I think the Roosters will just be too good for Manly down at the Sydney Cricket Ground. I think the first try scorer, I'm going to go with Daniel Tupou. Now, the next game sees the Panthers versus the Cowboys, and that is at Penrith Stadium. And, you know, Penrith Panthers, we all know what a season they had last year. They couldn't do it on the big stage in the grand final. I think they just couldn't handle that pressure of the big games, and they came up against a very experienced Melbourne team. But anyways, into this game, you know, Penrith, I think they've lost quite a few players. They've lost the likes of Josh Mansell in that, and, you know, this year for me, I think teams will improve around Penrith. I know a lot of people still got them in their top four, but I think they'll definitely make the top 8. They'll definitely still be up there, but, you know, I just think that they might drop off a bit. But, you know, in this game, it's in Penrith. The Penrith Panthers really should win this, but, you know, the Cowboys, they've got nothing to lose. Round 1, new coach, Todd Payton is at the helm. And, yeah, they've named an interesting lineup as well. You know, Michael Morgan's back. It's going to be interesting to see how he goes. Now, if he stays injury-free, he could definitely have a big season, Michael Morgan. So, you know, unfortunately, Nick from Australia, I'm going to have to tip the Penrith Panthers, you know. It's in Penrith, and I'm going to have to tip Penrith by 10. I just think Penrith will have enough for the Cowboys in this one. And first try scorer, I'm going to go with James Fisher-Harris. Now, Sunday, the 14th of March, sees the Raiders versus the Tigers at GIO Stadium in Canberra. And for me, this is going to be an interesting one. You know, the Raiders, they come into this year on the back of a preliminary finals loss to Melbourne last year. And, you know, last year they did quite well at the back end of the season without the likes of Josh Hodgson. They had a lot of injuries and they were written off by a few people. And, you know, they were very close to that grand final. If they had Josh Hodgson, you never know. The Raiders could have potentially been in the grand final and possibly won it, because they were my pick last year to win the premiership, the Canberra Raiders. You know, I had them top 4 or top 2, and they just missed out on the top 4. They finished around about 5th. And, you know, this is going to be an interesting one for the Raiders this year. It's going to be a really interesting one. They've lost Nick Kotrick. You know, they've lost Bateman. Those are 2 very big players lost for the Raiders. Now, this is in Canberra, and it's going to be a tough one for the Tigers. The Tigers come into this season, you know, for me, I haven't been impressed in their recruitment, but, you know, you just never know with round 1 games. Anything can happen, and it would not surprise me if an upset happened, but it's in Canberra, and I just cannot see it happening. I just cannot see it happening at all. And I'm going to tip the Raiders here. I'm going to tip them by 16. And I'm going to go first try scorer with Jack Whiten, the Dally M winner from last year. Now, the last game on Sunday to round off the round sees the Dragons versus the Sharks at Nistrata Jubilee Stadium. Now, there's not much to say. What can I say about this game? You know, this is 2 teams I reckon will struggle this year. I'm tipping both of these teams to struggle this year, so I've found it very hard to pick a winner in this game. Now, the Dragons this year are coming to the year with a new coach in Anthony Griffin. And, you know, they've had a lot of dramas in the off-season, the Dragons. And, you know, For me, I don't know how the Dragons will go. I think they'll struggle. I just can't see them challenging for the top 8 this year. As for the Sharks, they're missing the likes of Sean Johnson for the first couple of rounds. Now, they've still got a very good team, the Sharks, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people probably might not like me for saying this, but, I've got the Sharks struggling as well. So, for me in this game, this is one of the toughest games to call of the rounds, Both teams that I reckon that will struggle this year. Now, I'm going to have to pick the Sharks here, and I'm going to pick them by around about 2 points. I reckon it'll be about very close. I think it'll be a very close game. And my first try scorer, I've gone with Jesse Ramian. So, my picks, again, I'll repeat them. So, I've gone with the Storm by 8. And Remus Smith for the first try. I've got the Bulldogs by 4 and Nick Kotrick for the first try. The Broncos vs Eagles, I've gone with the Broncos by 6 and Herbie Farnworth for the first try as well. I've gone with the Roosters by 12 and Daniel Tupou for the first try. For the Panthers-Cowboys game, I've gone with the Panthers by 10. The Raiders versus the Tigers, I've gone with the Raiders by 16. And the Dragons versus the Sharks, I've gone with the Sharks by 2. So, yeah, that is my tips for round 1 of the NRL. How good is it to have the footy back? Bring it on. Go the mighty New Zealand Warriors. And I'll see you guys in the next one, which will be my live reaction on Saturday evening. Make sure you join me for that game.